One thing I want to ask you about the book as well, Dave, which struck me, is that it's dedicated to Ben Affleck. And I know why, but I think maybe some people watching will not. Why, we're talking about the Hollywood actor Ben Affleck, why have you dedicated it to him?
Sure. So to be clear, I don't know Ben Affleck. I've never met Ben Affleck. I've seen a lot of Ben Affleck movies, but why did I dedicate the book to Ben Affleck? Well, there's a very famous moment that I think was the political awakening for many people, and really was a truly, truly seminal moment in my life and certainly in my career. This is about 4 or 5 years ago. Ben Affleck was a panelist on Real Time with Bill Maher. And when I say panelist, meaning he was one of the 3 people on the opposite side of the table where that's where they debate the hot topics of the day. And then usually what they do on Real Time is they bring on another guest who sits on the same side of the table as Bill Maher. And that person has sort of a protected interview, meaning it's really more of a one-on-one. On that night, a mild-mannered neuroscientist named Sam Harris, who I did not know of at the time, he sat down with Bill Maher, and they were there to discuss his book called Waking Up, A Guide to Spirituality Without Religion, which I have right over there. And it's basically a book about how to find inner peace. And as they were discussing it, the topic of religion came up because Sam has been very outspoken. He's an outspoken critic of all religions, with bar none, with no exceptions. And obviously Bill Maher is a huge critic of religion. And what they started discussing was that we have to be able to separate ideas and people. Now, this is a concept that we all know, but we have trouble understanding in many cases. So ideas, meaning you should be able to criticize any set of ideas, but that doesn't mean you should be bigoted towards people who might hold those ideas. So in other words, you should be able to criticize the Old Testament and nobody would think you're automatically a hater of all Jews. You should be able to criticize the New Testament. Nobody would run around saying you hate all Christians. And likewise, you should be able to criticize the set of ideas that is the Quran, and you shouldn't hate all Muslim people as people. You would want to judge people individually. This is actually a very simple idea, but for some reason, it's very hard for people to understand. The way I would give you a metaphor to this is that religious doctrine is just a set of ideas, the same way a political party's doctrine is a set of ideas. So you could criticize everything in the Republican Party platform or the Labor Party platform. That doesn't mean you hate all members of the Labor Party. So this is a very important idea and an important distinction. And in effect, as they were talking about this relative to Islam, Ben Affleck turned to Bill Maher and Sam Harris, and the famous line is, he said that they are gross and racist. And he was also he was huffing and puffing and red in the face and kind of banging his hands on the table and very angry. And the reason that this was a wake-up moment for me was, at the time, I was still a big lefty. I was on the Young Turks network. But for about a year, I had been sort of trying to piece this thing together in my mind. And we all have some version of this where you know something's not right, but you can't quite piece it all together. And then something happens where you go, that's it. And this was the perfect example for me, because I had been thinking for about a year that it couldn't be that all of our intellectual opponents were racists and bigots and homophobes. It couldn't possibly be that we were so morally right and they were so morally wrong. It was just, the equation was just too easy. It just couldn't be. But I didn't have like the perfect example of what I was talking about. And then to watch this A-list actor just scream and emote. But in essence, what he was doing, what he was saying was not true. I mean, no one in their right mind, Bill Maher, I mean, this is a guy who for 30 years in America has been our most outspoken liberal, our most outspoken lefty. He has taken every lefty cause known to man. The idea that anyone would say Bill Maher is a racist is crazy. But what I saw happen right after that was suddenly all of the media was suddenly saying Bill Maher is a racist and Sam Harris is a racist, even though they said nothing racist. And by watching that, and by the way, as I said, I know that truly thousands and thousands, if not millions of people were woken up by that moment because it was just so obvious. So I thank Ben Affleck, actually, because if it wasn't for him doing that highly emotive, energetic, faux moralism, I don't know that I would have woken up as quickly as I did.
I mean, you've got this phenomenal following, obviously, Dave, but there you are in Los Angeles. In some ways, the sort of capital of virtue signaling, isn't it? I mean, Ben Affleck's just one example, because that's what he was really doing, wasn't it, in that instance?
Yeah, it's virtue signaling.
I mean, is it tough? I mean, if you are not in that mainstream view? I mean, I lived there, as you know, for a while, and I think I met one Republican, I think, and he was an agent. That was that's all I met in the whole time I was there.
It's an interesting question because, virtue signaling is an interesting thing because it's what you do outward. It isn't necessarily what you believe inwardly. And, Hollywood, for as messed up as Hollywood is and all the problems with Hollywood, the good thing about Hollywood is, the cream does tend to rise to the top. So if you have a good show, eventually it will break out. If you have a good stand-up routine, eventually it'll break out, whatever it might be. That's what competition's all about. So in many ways, even though these people pretend to be these crazy progressives, in another way, they live actually much more like libertarians. They want to be free. They want to make their money, spend it freely, and all of those things. I think that's actual virtue, by the way. Yeah. I don't think the faux moralization is virtue. But in terms of how it is living here, I mean, well, first off, I don't know if this is good for the country or the world, but we are watching politics and government collide into one thing. So I'm sorry, not politics and government, politics and entertainment collide into one thing. And as that happens, LA is the home of entertainment. So, suddenly Ben Shapiro, who we mentioned, he's here in LA. Dennis Prager here, and PragerU is in LA. Peter Thiel, the tech billionaire, he left San Francisco because he said, the progressive groupthink is so dangerous, and he fled to Los Angeles. I mean, that tells you that something decent must be happening here. Yes. But I would say the bigger barometer for me is that, when I walk my dog right now, and, it's really the only time that I get out of the house, the amount of people neighbors now, who say hi to me and they'll say, oh, I saw you on Fox News last night, or, oh, I saw you on the Ben Shapiro show yesterday. And what they're really saying to me is, I'm one of you too.
Yeah.
It's like they wouldn't run around, they wouldn't plaster it anywhere, they wouldn't want it on Facebook. But I'm seeing more and more and more of that. So in that way, I am enthused. But to bring it around to where we started here about California in general, I mean, look, they are, as we speak, they are now making it illegal to close the beaches. So I am certainly not thrilled with my state at the moment.
No. Where do you think this is going to go, Dave? I mean, you've been hugely successful with your show, but obviously as the mainstream broadcast networks decline in influence, I mean, what do you see in 10 years' time? What do you think that there are just going to be many more shows like yours or like this one here, or what do you see the future for people who maybe want an alternative? Will it just be YouTube?
Well, I love this. Look exactly at what we're doing right now. We're trying to have an honest conversation with important questions, relevant issues, and the rest of it. If we were doing this on the BBC, or if we were doing this on CNN or anywhere else, they'd have 8 boxes with people who have never accomplished anything, or they worked for campaigns or something like that. And you wouldn't feel any better at the end. That's what I always tell people. When you watch CNN, do you feel better after? Do you actually feel more enlightened after? Now, I'm not saying every show that I've ever done is the most brilliant, enlightening thing ever, but I think for the most part, if you watch an hour-long interview that I do, you'll take something away from it. I know that every single interview I've done, I've taken something away. Sometimes, I take away some great ideas, but sometimes I go, wow, that person really didn't know what they were saying, and you can learn something through that. So as far as watching the sort of online media grow and the mainstream media crumble, I mean, I think in many ways the online media has already surpassed mainstream media. I probably on a per show basis get more views than primetime CNN, and not only that, I do it at a fraction of the cost. I would say what it costs to do one night of Anderson Cooper with all the studio lights and the staff and the whole thing is probably the whole year of my shows. I mean, we've figured out a way to make a sleek, nimble, profitable. We have no debt, nice small business, which is totally congruent with all of my sort of libertarian ideas. I pay my guys really well because they work hard for me. We gave my guys all bonuses in the midst of coronavirus because I want them to feel valued, and I want them to keep working hard and the rest of it. Right. But that's on me to do, not on the government to force me to pay them a certain amount or something like that. So I think we've already seen the online thing surpass mainstream media. And in many ways, that's why mainstream media is so hysterical at the moment. They know they're a sinking ship. In many ways, I liken it, you lived in LA, to the La Brea tar pits where you can go here. And that's where, the dinosaurs would get caught in the tar. And some of the smarter dinosaurs, you know what they do? The smarter ones, instead of jumping right into the tar, they would sometimes jump on a dinosaur to get across the other way. And I think that's really sort of what's happening right now. that being said, I am worried because, look, we do this on YouTube and Facebook and Twitter, and, big tech could in effect shut any of us down whenever they want. I have all sorts of issues with that.
Yes,
so we do have to be wary.
What have you had there? I mean, you've had some demonetization, things like that, or what? Or shadow banning?
Yeah, well, there's all sorts of stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
Twitter, in their terms of service, in effect has shadow banning. So shadow banning is when you follow somebody and you just don't see their tweets. They just don't appear in your feed. Now, in their terms of service, as of January 1st this year, at least from an American perspective, I actually think it might be different in the UK or in Europe. They're allowed to shadow ban. They can throttle certain accounts and promote certain accounts. Now, I'm not telling them as a business they can't do that, right? I mean, they can do what they want. But we should all be aware that as we tweet things out and as we put videos on Facebook and YouTube and the rest of it, we're all playing a fixed game and we're pretending that it's not fixed. It's like, if we were playing basketball or cricket and one team had one set of rules and the other team had another set of rules, but we all pretended it was the same rules, this would be a bit of a problem, right? So I'm worried that big tech could sort of take any of us out all the time. And by the way, because I try to do things and not just talk about them, this is why I started in the last year. I started my own tech company, locals.com, to build digital homes for creators where you can own your content. We don't own user data. It's a really beautiful system that I think we've solved 95% of the problems for 95% of the people. And if any of your viewers or listeners want to check it out, rubinreport.com is the first project of Locals. And we have a totally troll-free environment. There's no deplatforming on Locals, because if you come into my local and you're just there to wreak havoc, I can kick you out, but you can still be in anyone else's local. And by the way, that's not an infringement on free speech, because just like I'm for anyone saying whatever they want outside of my house, I don't welcome everybody into my house to say whatever they want. So I think we have to start dealing with these issues in a mature way. And I do see a new internet sort of on the horizon. Internet 3.0, I think, is what a lot of people are calling it. But I don't think people like us should pretend that our problems have been solved just because the mainstream media is kind of crumbling right now. I think we still have a lot of problems on the horizon.
Your company again is called locals.com, is that right?
So locals.com is the parent company, and our first product, in effect, if people want to see it, is rubinreport.com, and we build iOS apps and we build Android apps. And again, it's every creator sets your rules. It's your own rules. It's your community. It's sort of like building your own country. And if you want to associate with other people, you can. And if you don't, you won't. And again, there's no perfect system. I think a lot of people are sort of looking like we can somehow build a social network that is an absolute perfect system for everybody. And I just don't think that exists. So I think by doing something that's creator first, that's the way to do it.
We're going to sort of finish shortly, Dave. Obviously, you've got other things you've got to go and do. I wanted to ask you, though, if your comments about the way things are going at the moment politically in your country. First of all, I wondered what, here, obviously the view we have of President Trump is very much through a filter of, a very hostile media. I mean, so what's new? But
we all saw the balloon.
Exactly. I just wondered what your view is of the way that he's handling the crisis at the moment, and also, for that matter, what you see happening in November. I mean, because I saw a poll recently which showed Biden about 10 points ahead. Is that an outlier or is that actually happening?
Yeah. Well, first off, to the poll point, I mean, every single poll I think in America had Hillary Clinton winning. So I wouldn't get too hung up on polls, and I certainly wouldn't get too hung up on them, this many months out from the election. Very quickly on Biden. I mean, look, the sad thing with Biden, and I don't mean this to be glib or funny in any way. It's like the guy's having major cognitive problems. We all know it. We all can see it. He's having trouble finishing sentences. Many of us have dealt with this, all right? My grandmother, who passed away a few years ago, had dementia. I know what that's like. I'm not saying he has dementia, but there is something going on there. And the media is running cover for him, where it's what I described as fake news before, in that if you never talk about something that we can all see, it makes average people go, oh, what else are you lying to us about? So what I'm concerned about with Biden is that they're sort of covering him right now. And they're dragging him to get the nomination. But anyone that votes for Biden, the unfortunate truth is what you really have to understand is you're most likely voting for the vice president. You are not voting for that person. And that's just a sad fact. It is not a reflection of how I feel about Biden or anything else. So that's Biden. As far as Trump, look, I think a lot of people wanted a panther in a china shop a couple of years ago. We wanted this panther to walk in and be kind of cool and calm, and with its tail to knock a piece of china off and then walk out the back door, close it, and let everything be. But there's no such thing as a panther in a china shop, right? You get a bull in a china shop. And that's what Trump is. He walked in, he kind of wrecked everything, and now things are sort of being rebuilt. So I did not vote for Trump last time. I voted for Gary Johnson, who was the third party libertarian candidate. And by the way, I'm in California, where I had the luxury of making a decision like that because it was going to go so heavily for Hillary no matter what. But I would say, short of absolute economic collapse, short of, a true Great Depression kicking in, which, by the way, is not completely unfathomable. I mean, we have 25 million people unemployed right now. I mean, we have major problems. But short of that, I think Trump probably wins, and I think he probably wins pretty big. I think, in effect, what's happened here is that the average person who's watching this, we're watching Democrat states like California do crazy lockdowns right now, and as opposed to just having honest conversations with us about how to reopen. And I can't say that I don't think any of that has to do with the fact that they want to hurt Trump. But meanwhile, Republican states like Texas are opening up, I think, today or tomorrow, and they'll figure out a way to do it. I think people want to go back to work. I think people want to get their lives back together, and I think that sort of becomes a win for Trump. I also think Trump was very hard on on China before this. I think that obviously becomes a win. Yeah. I think the Second Amendment stuff, the gun stuff, becomes more of a win for Trump because people are thinking, well, the whole system seems a little crazy. Maybe I should be able to defend myself. I think that becomes a win for him. I also think the border stuff, where the Democrats are sort of more open border, or it's very unclear what they want. Trump does want a border. You may not like the wall. You may not like the way he talks about it, but I think that becomes a win too. So again, that's all sort of separate from his personality and the Twitter and everything else. But my sense is that short of something truly catastrophic, which, as I said, anything could happen at this point, I think Trump probably gets reelected.
So I think I take from that you've gone towards Trump yourself much more than maybe last time.
I don't think he's a racist. I don't think he's a homophobe. I think he fights the media in a way that is the only way that they can be fought. I'm not going to sit here and say I think he's the most moral, greatest person ever. Politics is a really, really dirty game. We all know politicians lie, and other politicians just do it while wearing a sharp suit and a really nice smile, and it that it seems they really love their wife. I probably don't have time for the whole story, but I will tell you one thing, which is there's a video on my channel where I talk about it. But I met Trump at Mar-a-Lago in December. I had dinner with Trump Jr. and Kimberly Guilfoyle, his girlfriend, and my husband and I. And Trump, Jr. introduced us to Trump. And when Trump realized that we were gay, he was thrilled. He slapped his hands on the table. He stood up. He said, "I'm so happy that you're here. Thank you for coming." And then he said something that I probably can't repeat because of language. But, in effect, he said, I don't give a shit, and I don't think anyone else gives a shit, and I don't think they've given a shit for 20 years. And my husband had a nice chat with Melania. I had a nice chat with Trump. And, again, I don't think he's perfect. I think the system is wacky. But we don't have great options right now. So, it would be crazy for me to say, oh, well, I'm absolutely voting for him right now. It's like, I'll be happy to talk to you again in the fall, and we can discuss it as we get a little bit closer. But I don't have major problems with him in light of the way he's dealing with what I think are much bigger problems related to the media and the rest of the things that we've been talking about here.
Well, Dave, you mentioned your husband, by the way, there. Am I right in thinking you're sort of going for a family, aren't you, at the moment? Or is that right?
We just settled on our surrogate. It's a strange time to decide that you're going to expand your family in the middle of a pandemic. But yes, we are doing that.
Okay. Well, look, all the very best. Dave, I do want to thank you very much for your time this morning. It's about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock in the morning, isn't it there? I think.
It's 8 a.m., but I had my coffee, and they always tell me there's this idea in America, oh, you have to watch out for these UK journalists because they're always trying to get you.
Oh, they are.
But I know that, and often they are. But I've thoroughly enjoyed talking to you, Peter.
Well, thank you very much. And the book again is "Don't Burn This Book" by Dave Rubin. It's out now. It came out this week. Thank you very, very much, Dave. Thanks very much for watching, and we shall see you next time on So What You're Saying Is. Please do remember to subscribe, won't you? Thank you. Bye.